Okay, so now I want to go over the misses, where I think GM didn't quite hit the mark when it comes to the Bolt EV, where they could have done better or some areas of opportunity. The first is, and this is going to sound odd just coming off of talking about how much I like the interior, the first is actually the seats. And I don't think the seats specifically, but they're reflective of a larger issue with the car. I think that GM should have provided a more plush, luxurious interior option. Not necessarily at the LT trim, I wouldn't have wanted that anyway, but I think they should have given the option for people to pay for upgraded seats. So maybe a little bit wider, a little bit more well cushioned, maybe impede a little bit on the rear leg room, for the rear passengers. And yeah, you take a hit in terms of weight as well. You're probably looking at least another 10 to 20 pounds per seat in terms of increased weight. But I think people sort of wanted a more plush interior, and that option wasn't really available. So I think GM missed on that, and maybe in upcoming models they could look to do that. From what I understand, the seats that say they put in their Cadillac line tend to be much nicer, much more luxurious. Maybe they should be looking at least providing that as an upgrade option at the Premier level. From what I've understood, some people would be willing to pay another $1,000 to $1,500 on top of the price of the car to have better seats like that. So maybe it's something GM should consider. Of course, with the caveat that that could affect range and performance. The next miss, I think, is the interface. I posted up a video recently, my impressions on the interface and my review of it, and I think it could be improved a lot. It has opportunities that aren't being taken advantage of, and like I said, one thing, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, I feel we should be able to project those into a pane, and so you still preserve the rest of the home screen while accessing something like your Android Auto. There should just be better options. There's not enough information about how the battery's actually charging in terms of current, in terms of rate. Maybe they don't want that displayed. Maybe they want people to have to sort of search for that information, but I don't like it. I would much prefer to have a little bit more transparency and a little bit more information for those of us who are actually interested. The other thing is, again, this is actually an interior thing, but it's the rear headroom. So I have a fairly long torso, and some people I know also do, and so, someone had mentioned that they felt like the rear headroom was a little bit short, and I was so used to sitting in the front seat where I think you could actually be as tall as 6'4", 6'5" without running into any sort of significant headroom issue. But in the rear, when I got back in again, I realized, yes, there is significantly less headroom. Now, I don't believe it would affect anybody who's under 6 feet tall, and in fact, it's several inches higher than, say, the rear seat in the Volt or the rear seat in the Model S sedan. Tesla's Model S sedan. So it actually has significantly more headroom than either of those two cars, but it's still, if you're well over 6 feet or you have a longish torso, you could start running into head clearance issues. Getting into the car, yes, you're going to have to duck. That there's no way of getting around that. But once you are in the car, you might start to run into some issues where your head is, or your hair is rubbing up against the top of the roof. The other thing, and this is going to sound really nitpicky, I think they missed an opportunity with the DC fast charging. Now, a lot of people have said, hey, I don't need it. And so maybe they were right in adding it as an option. So someone who really wants to get into a long-range electric vehicle and they're pinching pennies, and they're not going to do a lot of long-range driving, maybe they should have the option of taking $750 off the price. So okay, yeah, you want to get a Bolt for $3,500 or $35,000 before rebates and incentives. Yeah, maybe that sounds viable. But if you're going to add the DC fast charging option and make us pay for it, I really would have liked them to add an LED to the charge port. Something to light the area, because my recent experiences at some of the current DC fast charging stations are that, you know, they're not in well lit environments. You have a black plug with a black receptacle at nighttime in a poorly lit environment. It's really hard to plug it in sometimes. So I think having some sort of an LED to actually illuminate the charge port would make it much easier to use. And then the final miss, and this is going to sound really weird, and it's the brand. Had the Bolt been released as a Tesla, had the Bolt been released as a Honda or a Toyota, had the Bolt been released by many other auto manufacturers, it would have been met with huge, huge wide open arms. People would have absolutely fallen over themselves to get in this car. But the fact that it came from GM, the fact that it came from the company that killed the electric car, there's an issue there. And it's not one that I know that GM actually has any real control over, except in this way. They need to push EVs. They need to push them hard. They've just proven that they can build as good of an electric vehicle as any manufacturer on the planet right now. This powertrain, this drivetrain, this battery system, all of it could go in a myriad different vehicles, and they could show a commitment to the electric vehicles. We know that the Bolt EV is not a compliance car. Just get that out of your head. It is not. But what it is representative of what they could be doing, and it's going to take a lot of work for them to sort of clean up their brand image within the electric vehicle community. And unfortunately, the Volt didn't do it for them. And sadly, it looks like even the Bolt EV isn't going to allow some people to get over their cognitive dissonance that GM is the enemy. So if they can make a full concerted effort to push electric vehicles across their entire product line, I think we'll see that change. I think GM can win back a huge market share, and I think that they can prove that they're truly committed to this electric vehicle movement. So those are my hits and misses for the Bolt. Overall, it's definitely a hit. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the best cars on the road right now. Just, you know, that's my bias. But let me know if you have any questions, if you enjoy this format of the segment. Future reviews will be on other topics, but I thought I would lead off with the Bolt EV. Thanks, guys.